Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling. Should we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today? Friday, you know the drill. we got to sing two lines, not even two lines of Rebecca Black, like 2 words of Rebecca Black's Friday, and then immediately try and find a conversational thread to put on here. But yeah, it's a weekend, of course. What are we going to be talking about? I don't know. I mean, Eurovision's tomorrow. Will I be watching it? Probably. What else happened? I finished the Honkai Star Rail new Trailblazer mission. It's a long mission, by the way. Like, I felt like I was getting delirious to the end of it because I was super sleepy. But anyway, hello everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow at 6:09 p.m. on Friday, May 10th, 2024. It's good. I'm not going to spoil anything. It was like, I mean, the general sort of vibe from like a lot of the other Genshin Honkai Star Rail sort of stories, at least in my opinion, are like, they have the core concepts are actually pretty good. Like lore-wise, they have like a lot of cool things going on, and I think they've earned the trust of being like, okay, there are no like unfired Chekhov's guns or like what's a phrase for when something is like, oh, this is going to be important later. I mean, it is important later somehow. So if you're like a theory crafter of like what's going on in not theory crafter, but if you're like a lore keeper, I suppose, of what's going on in the story, they're fantastic games for you. I will say, sometimes the presentation of some of the stories it's interesting because Genshin, a lot of the time they feel very sort of dumbed down. The stories is sort of like, okay, this is so in your face of obvious of what's going on. But then I think they've hit their stride with Fontaine, where I think it was a perfect balance of both. Star Rail still, I mean, technically it's only in 1 year telling stories, and it's not quite finished yet, the Penacony arc, but it was a pretty good arc. This is very much a sort of like the climax of it, I believe. And weirdly, it goes from the other perspective, where the overlying feeling I've got from playing Honkai Star Rail story is I'm exhausted following the story because I don't know what a lot of these things are trying to reference. Not what trying to references, but it's really difficult to follow story-based terms and understand. Like, I think it's fine to get like the general concept of the entire story of what's going on, but then like, I mean, like so many, like the thing that comes to mind is like every time like Acheron has a conversation, or Sunday in the story as well, a lot of the times I'm just like, what is going on? I genuinely cannot, it's not I genuinely can't follow it. Like the words make sense in like English, in like a literal English sense. This is more like my brain, I mean, part of it's probably because I was playing at like 2 or 3 a.m. maybe, but my brain is just like, I can't comprehend what this even means. Like, what are you talking? Like, I can extract the general vibes of what's going on. You're talking about something important. You're talking about this event is something. But I'm like, I don't understand the exact words you're using in this context, and not from like an English definition. It's because they're specific like in-universe descriptions of things, which I don't like know the entire lore of Honkai Star Rail and that sort of thing. I know the sort of like general lore, like outside of the story and the Trailblazer missions and that sort of thing, but I was just like, what is going on? But anyway, the Penacony quest, it's interesting. If you know, you know, but I suppose it was just like, this one's, I was just like, oh, it's pretty good, and then it was like, okay, now I'm getting like a bit bogged down with everything, and then I was like, oh, it's getting pretty good, and then I was like, what? It's terrible. This is atrocious. And then I was like, whoa, no, hold on, this is actually pretty good. I will say it's incredibly long. I don't know how long. Like, it took me over quite a couple of nights playing for free or something else. So it probably took me like 9 hours to get through. No, maybe not that long. 6-7 hours or something to get through. It's lengthy, but it's pretty good. It's been a wild ride from start to almost end, because I can't imagine this is the end exactly. I think the main climax is over, certainly, but I think there's still a lot of things which need to be tied up. I want to talk about it, but because it's so new, I'm not going to talk about it just because it would spoil things. But it's pretty good. It's not quite to the level of like me finishing Genshin Impact's I can't remember what patch it is, but Fontaine's story quest, the final one, it's not quite to the level of me going like, whoa, that was, as I say, peak fiction, but I'm just like, this was really good. I think probably what I need to do is I need to watch like a shortened version of it again, just to sort of like retread upstairs, because I played it over I was incredibly tired when I was playing some of it. Like there was points where like, what determined me stopping playing, I was like, I don't understand what's going on in the quest anymore, I'm going to stop playing for tonight. Probably shouldn't be playing like so late, like past midnight and that sort of thing, but you know, that's what I do. Sleep late sleeper, because I don't need a lot of sleep. There's a very fortunate ability I have. A boon, I should say, I have. But yeah, what was I going to say? No, I was going to say, it's the sort of thing where like I need to process what happens. I need to watch like not a summary video, but maybe like a shortened version of what happens, so I can get like. And I'm sure there are people who are like lore keepers of Honkai Star who will probably make like a really good video of it. I remember what I did for the Genshin ones is I watched WAP, who is like someone else. He's like a Genshin YouTuber who played for it, because he like edits down his videos and it makes it more digestible to consume things, where I'm just like, oh yeah, I remember that happening, I remember that happening, I remember that happening. Anyway, I don't know, like what's the most like convoluted story I've read? You know, this is going to be like a hot take. Well, it's not really about a hot take, I don't think. But I definitely was way too young when I actually... You might be like, Lord of Rings. And you're hold on, sorry. I might be like... I was going to say, like, what's one of like the most convoluted stories I read or something like that? And I was going to be like, Lord of Rings, I remember feeling very convoluted when I read it. And then I was going to be like, hold on, before Lord of Rings fans get on me, and that sort of thing. I read it... I was definitely way too young when I read it, I think. Or I didn't appreciate it enough when I read it. Because I read it when I was like in primary school, so I was like 9 or something. I remember at the time I was reading it, I was like... it was both interesting, but also I was like, I'm not sure I'm following exactly what's going on. I think part of it is that sort of like medieval fantasy genre is not really my sort of thing, which is weird because I suppose I'm playing D&D, but I much prefer sort of like the high fantasy sort of style of things, which is I guess my D&D world is kind of like a mix of both. Like I mean, like I think I rely on more medieval fantasy sort of trope sort of things, because then those are sort of like universal things which people know about and have a general idea about, and it would save me having to be like, okay, everyone, here's how much of a world you need to know, because I'm gonna be honest, not everyone in the world, not everyone who plays a D&D campaign is super like, hey, I need to know all of the lore of your world. And in fact, I don't think most people are. I think most people who play it are kind of like more invested in the sort of like story which surrounds our characters, which is totally fair, because I probably would be as well. Which, if anything, is a good thing, because now people can't call me out for like, hey, this lore inconsistency doesn't make sense. We don't have someone in the group who is just like, I'm a deep lore diver, I'm gonna like read all the lore, all the like extra reading books and that sort of thing, and try and piece together everything like that, which is good in a sense, because I've not like... I'm not J.R.R. Tolkien or George R. Wait, are they both R.R.? Tolkien. It is J.R.R. Tolkien. Hold on, what is Game of Thrones? Although I guess Song of Ice and Fire, but still, George R. They're both R.R. Okay, I actually never thought about that. I'm not either of them. I don't have that in crazy world building bone in me, I suppose, where I'm going to invent languages or something, or think, or really have a solidified 1,000-year history. I forgot what I was going with this, but I remember, yes, okay, so there's a thing where basically, I don't know if it was weekly or something, but there was like a scheme that we had to do for, not a scheme, but like part of like the education in my primary school was like we had to have like a reading book or journal or something, where it was like, I can't remember like the time scale we had. It was like we had to read like some, not, we didn't, there wasn't like a fixed page amount or something, but we had to have like reading sessions twice a week or something. And we had like this book journal, it was like book diary, where we had, it must have been like 5 times a week or something, right? It was just like read for 15 minutes or something. I can't remember exactly, because I remember there being 5 like slots, like diary slot things to write something about the book in. But anyway, we had that, and we had to fill it in and write like stuff about the book that we learned. And I remember like sometimes I would read like a lot of it. Like, you know, I don't mind reading. It's not exactly my favorite media form, I think. I very much prefer visual effects than words. But I do like it, mainly because I suppose when I find a book which is good enough and, you know, paints a great enough picture, I suppose, of the story, and I can see the movie in my mind, that's what really engrosses me. And despite the fact that I forgot a name for a second, hold on, Rowling, certainly is not the greatest, I suppose, public figure right now with whatever the heck she's doing, to be perfectly honest. Harry Potter at least was a sort of book series for me where I'm like, yeah, I can visually paint it. And just to get off that topic, I suppose, let's talk about another book series instead, like the Ink Heart series, or the His Dark Materials trilogy. Those two book series also were like book series in my mind where like I pictured exactly what was going on so vividly, and it was like painting a picture. I was like enthralled by it, but I would read so much of it. But sometimes I would have books and I would just like read like 1 page or 2 pages just to like check off a box, like it's how rule abiding I suppose I was, where instead of like me being lazy was still me doing a work, it was just doing the bare minimum of a work rather than like not lying about it, because a lot of my friends were just like, oh, I just like lied about how much I read or something, and just put something random, like I'd be like, oh, I read this many pages, and then they just like read a random sentence in that page slot and be like, oh yeah, this is what happened. And then you had to get it like signed by your do you have to get it signed by your parent or something? No, I think I'm getting it confused with the planners we had in secondary school. But then like you would have a review with a teacher who would like read over or look over just to check that you were actually reading or something every single week. I can't remember how often it was. In my mind, it must have been like five times a week. But I remember like some of the books I chose. Like eventually, I was choosing books and then basically reading 1 page and then just doing like a 1-page summary, I suppose, in the thing. Like I remember, we didn't have like. I mean, we did have books. We had like a lot. I don't even know what you told me about a catchphrase. No, Rainy is a fantastic one. I don't know if you were saying rainy before, but, rainy. Yeah, it works for you. So we're going to sit here and we'll carry on the conversation. Unless there's an easy Nookmart mission 5 times we could do customize. Okay, we can do a customization one. But I remember, like, well, we had a library near me when I was growing up and that sort of thing. But one of the books, there weren't many books that we had, like, actually owned, I suppose, as a family when I was younger. But one of them, for some reason, was the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy, all 3 books. And I was like, okay, I need like a book to read for like my book reading. And I chose, okay, why don't I read this Lord of the Rings series? I hear it's very popular and that sort of thing. So I read it when I started reading it, like, I don't know, I think I must have been year 5. So that would have probably put me at like 9, 10-ish when I started doing it. No, actually, hold on. That can't be right, because we didn't do it in year 5. And it must have been like year 3 or year 4. So I must have been like somewhere in the range of 6 to 10 when I was reading Lord of the Rings. And it took me like a really long time to do it, unsurprisingly. But I remember reading through, and I remember being like, but it went sort of like in waves and spurts where like I was like, oh, this is actually like pretty interesting. But a lot of it I remember just like reading 1 page and just filling in the book report, because I was just like, oh, I'm so confused at what's going on. Probably because I read like 1 page every single day. So, it took me like a year to actually get through the book, to get through like half a book or something in the first place. But it always sticks in my mind. There was one part which I don't even remember. I think part of the reason that I actually didn't like it that much, I didn't like it as much at the time, is that I found it difficult to understand what was going on, because I didn't understand like a lot of what these medieval fantasy terms were, and then when they were being referenced. I'm sure if I read it now, I'd probably enjoy it more, but probably it's along the same sort of style of Star Wars. I mean, when I'd read it and be like, yeah, it's good, but it's not my sort of jam. Where I'm like, I'm not enthralled by it. I mean, that's my response to Star Wars. But I was just like, I watched it like super late. I watched it when I was like mid-20s or something. And I was like, it's fine. Like, I think it was pretty cool. Certainly if I watched it like when it came out, like in 1980 or whatever, I'd be like, this is amazing. But even now, I can appreciate it, but it's not something which I'm like, I'm that invested in fandom-wise or anything like that. And I think Lord of the Rings is probably would be a similar sort of thing, where I'd be like, yeah, I can appreciate it, and it's pretty super cool. But it's just not the sort of thing where I'm like super invested in, like fan-wise, fandom-wise, etc., etc. We need to withdraw some more belts, it turns out. But what I was going to say is, there's one section of Lord of the Rings books, I don't remember which one. I think it might have been the 3rd book or something. Where I was absolutely enthralled. I was just like, this is it. I was like, whoa. It was literally like page turning, where I was just like, I could not put the book down. I can't remember even what section it was. I don't really remember what happened. It was like in a mountain, and there was like a tunnel. I think we were like passing through a tunnel. I think it was, I don't know if Gollum was I'm pretty sure it was about Frodo and him doing something, but I genuinely cannot remember. But I can still almost remember those visuals which were going through my mind when I read it. As I say, the visuals which go through my mind really define a book. And the problem, as I said, I think with Lord of the Rings, I didn't have as much, I couldn't conjure as much as the visuals because I didn't really understand what was going on. A lot of it went over my head, which is probably why, things like His Dark Materials and the Inkheart trilogy work so well, is because I couldn't imagine what's going on. More or less. I don't even remember the main character's name of the Inkheart series anymore, but I remember how I pictured her, which I believe was also the incorrect depiction of her. Like I think I misunderstood what her description was. But I pictured her wearing this like yellow summer dress, and she had like red curly short hair or something. That's what I remember. And I remember how I pictured her father as well, which weirdly I pictured her father as like an older Asian man for some reason. Probably because we had a family friend of the same name. And that's who I pictured, which really makes no sense whatsoever. Anyway, I don't know. So some really how good a book is as a page turner for me is how well I suppose I can imagine the story of what's going on. And Lord of the Rings, unfortunately, it didn't do that for a lot of the moments. But maybe I should read it again, or maybe I'd listen to an audiobook, I suppose, nowadays, because I don't know. Maybe audiobooks are more up my alley? Or maybe it would make more sense for me to watch a movie. I'm not really sure why I didn't come to that conclusion earlier. But I remember reading the books and just being like, I don't really understand what's going on, but I just kept with it because I was like, I need a book to read for my like reading week stuff. Yeah. I still find it so funny that it never crossed my mind to cheat at the homework, I suppose, or at least my way of cheating at the homework was actually just to do it, but just like the bare minimum, rather than actually just like lying about homework in the first place. And I genuinely never thought about that before, but that's really, really quite funny. Just being like, I really don't want to do the homework, and a normal kid reaction being like, I'll just pretend that I did it, or like I forgot it, or I'll like lie about doing it, like how in English class people like don't actually read a book, they read like the Spark Notes or something like that. And my one was like, I don't really want to do this. I guess what I'll have to do is I'll just do less of it. That is so funny. Anyway, Lord of the Rings. Don't come at me, Lord of the Rings fans, because I'm not saying Lord of the Rings is bad. I'm saying it's actually probably pretty great. I was just definitely not the right time for me to like try and even start reading or consuming it. I'm not saying that I would be a super fan of Lord of the Rings had like circumstances be different. I do think it's not something which like super lands into the things which have great appeal for me, but I think it is still in like good enough where, well, not good enough, it's still like great where I'd just be like, yeah, it's good. I don't know what I was gonna say about this, but I'm going to round this episode off here. So I guess like convoluted stories. If you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time. Bye-bye for now.